Hello! The aim of this video is to talk about how new technologies, in particular animation, can compromise the indexicality of documentaries. First of all, let's define what a documentary is. Overall, the purpose of documentary is to give to the audience a lesson or an experience that has to be impartial. Therefore, the viewer will mix their experience to the one learned from the documentary in order to get the final moral of it. As a consequence, a good documentary should represent reality without influencing any aspect of it in order to allow the viewer to capture the information as much as possible. On the other hand, elements such as personal mindset or experience could influence the information and create a different understanding of the moral to another person watching the same documentary. With this in mind, also different mindset can compromise the indexicality in the way of directing documentaries. Therefore, it is not possible just one way to create a good documentary because, according to the director and the story they want to show, the way to represent reality will change. According to the scholar Bill Nichols, documentaries can be catalogued in 6 categories. Observational, where the audience view the content with no cut, editing, or description of the fact. Expository, where the event is seen from one point of view and is described by a narrator. Poetic, where the structure of the film is edited in a non-linear way in order to evoke sensation from the audience. Participatory, that collects interviews in order to prove its authenticity because of the first-person storytelling. Performative, which is less focused on the truth of something, but favoring a takeover the objective lens. And reflexive, where the relationship is not between the director and the event, but the director and the audience. If we think about the last category, reflexive documentaries somehow give room for fictional elements. In fact, the main point is to communicate a feeling of as an event unfolds. At this stage, it is important to define how technologies affect documentary. Some scholars, such as Divone, argue that the aesthetic of a documentary does influence the realism of it. Vaughan says that if the aesthetic choices help the audience to rely on a documentary's authenticity, then what you see is what it is, and it is indexical truth. There can be a connection between the nature of the film and how the mind filters the truth from it. In fact, animation or fictional elements are just a way we use our brain to understand better the emotions of a situation without getting detached from it. In this way, the audience can rely more on the truth of something because they can experience it at that particular moment. So, for example, in the documentary His Mother's Voice, the 2 different animations give a concreteness to the long piece of audio, which otherwise would be just a radio interview. On the other hand, Nichols argues that there are no correlation between aesthetic and truth in documentaries. In fact, the main relation is between the content and viewers' life experience of a subject, and he calls that vivification. As a result, the aesthetic aspect does not necessarily add truth, but it makes the content clearer. For instance, the documentary about Michael Gandhi is The Man Who Stole Happy. The use of animation makes clear the concept of this philosopher, which otherwise would be too abstract and dispersive because of them not being able to be produced in reality. At this stage, it is also important to notice the period we're living in. Actually, technology is present everywhere. Especially in movies, the amount of visual effects is high and it becomes harder to have a production with no. And therefore, the audience expectation is already set to not completely rely on the indexicality of the image. In fact, the image is not important anymore for the truth, but more for how it makes the content clear.
The T lymphocytes, the polynuclears, the macrophages, and many others.
It is the audience's personal experience that we take their own information from it. For instance, the representation of death in film is made to look real, and even though the audience can experience the emotion of it, that is only a fake event. As a consequence, in this modern era, it is the ability to relate to the image and to what it's supposed to represent that makes it real. In conclusion, I would say that actually, according to the different ways to do documentaries, there is also space for animation to fit in. In fact, nowadays it is not the actual image that proves the reality of an event, but it is the meaning of it that makes the audience think about the moral and the message that the director intends them to receive.